Hey everybody, my name is Rick Gualtieri and welcome back to another Tales of a Midlist Author. After my last one, I'm sure a lot of you were thinking that when I said I was taking a break, that I meant I'm abandoning this, go screw yourself. Um, and I just want to tell you that's not true. I meant what I said. When I say I'm busy and I'm taking a break to focus on other things, I actually mean that. I try to always be honest with these things, and if I'm not going to be doing something again, I try to be upfront. But I always meant to keep recording these. It was just a matter of one, I had other things to focus on, and two, at the time I was kind of out of topics. But I'm back now. Again, I'm just going to say I'm not going back to a weekly format yet. I want to keep these up as things, I guess, as topics of interest come up. But I'm back today with one that I think is interesting. This is something I've been talking with other authors about, and I will offer this up front. This is I won't say this is an infomercial, but this is kind of leading up to a service that I'm offering. Um, you know, hey, sue me for putting something out there and trying something, but even if you don't decide to use that service, I do want you to listen to what I have to say, because the idea behind this is, to give you ideas so you can work on something by yourself. Think of me as more of like a last ditch effort, where if you absolutely can't and you need if you need help. So before I get to that, what I want to talk to you today were taglines, and we're talking book taglines here. It can also be series and stuff, but individual books for the most part. And so, what is a tagline? A tagline, well, is not your full marketing blurb. Your full marketing blurb, that's like your movie trailer, in words. In a world, this hero is going to have something bad happen to him, and then vampires come, and then the end of the world, and if he doesn't stop it, we're all screwed. That's your marketing blurb. A tagline is meant to be a short 1 to 2 line, maybe 1 to 2 sentence thing, something that's short, memorable, but evokes your work. Now, I think taglines are probably most famous for movies these days, but that does not say books can't or shouldn't have them. I'm a big fan of them for books. But think of some of the more popular ones that are out there. In space, no one can hear you scream. Immediately, unless you're living under a rock, you think the movie Alien, and that's what it's meant to. It's meant to just be like a short thing that makes you immediately think of something else and associate that. It's almost like word association. One of my favorites from Army of Darkness, trapped in time, surrounded by evil, low on gas. I love that because it kind of subverts it. It gives you, some makes it sound like it's heavy, and all of a sudden it kind of just smacks you with a little comedy. Those are awesome taglines. Jurassic Park, an adventure 65 million years in the making. That's kind of meant to evoke that sense of wonder and such. And the thing is, it's not only just movies that have taglines, but even characters can have taglines. There can be only one. Even if that doesn't evoke the movie Highlander, it probably evokes the character, of Connor McLeod. And then there's actor taglines. What's probably the most famous? Schwarzenegger's "I'll be back." 3 simple words, but said in his way, where it essentially he made that his own. And that's what a tagline is really supposed to be. Something short, memorable, that makes you think of something else, preferably your work. And, what it should do is exactly as I just said. When they hear that tagline, they should think of your book or book series and nothing else. And here's where a lot of authors, I think, get it wrong. They either go with something that's too long, that doesn't fly off the tongue, or they come up with something that's too generic and that could apply to anything. I was on Team Twat Waffle, my Facebook group, and I posted something like this, and I said an excellent example of generic is Darkness Rises. I've seen a ton of books with this as a tagline, Darkness Rises, and it's okay, Darkness Rises. Yeah, congratulations. It rises in just about every friggin' urban fantasy, horror, epic fantasy, hell, even some romances. That doesn't tell you shit. I would say, rather than go with generic, at least try to, even if you can't make it evocative of your book, make it evocative of your genre, at least narrow it down. So instead of just Darkness Rises, maybe if you're doing a space adventure, Darkness Rises from from deep space or so. At least that tells me you probably have something sci-fi, you know, you know, or in the pit of hell, Darkness Rises. That probably tells me either we're doing some kind of fantasy or or we're doing horror. So even if you can't make it 100% yours, at least try to narrow it down a bit. But again, make sure it rolls off the tongue. You don't want to have you don't want to have, sometimes less is more. I mentioned I'll be back. It's 3 words. You can do something along the lines of, Jurassic Park meets Batman. That's really short, to the point. Hopefully you're not lying and your book actually is evocative of that. But right there, you could have a simple to the point, tagline, which also evokes other memories so that people can kind of associate. I'm okay with doing that with with characters or or stuff like that. I'm not a big fan of necessarily doing that with other authors or so, because that can be a little too wide. It's like, hey, look at my book. It's Stephen King meets James Patterson. That could be any of a million different books. They all write in both guys have a ton of stuff out there. So I would rather probably do it with a character. So, although honestly, I prefer to do something a little original. But as a tagline, that is something that could work. So, the tagline I'm probably most quote unquote famous for is for my Toma Bill series, which is there are reasons we fear the night. He's not one of them. And right away, that's supposed to kind of go back to that Army of Darkness one. Hit you with something serious, and then it's like, well, wait a second, kind of subverts it. Another one that I think is really awesome, and this is from Robert Bevan's Caverns and Creatures series, is what if you and your friends got to live in the game for real? What if you and your friends were assholes? It's a little bit longer than some taglines, but right there it kind of hits you with exactly what you're getting. It's like, oh, okay, I understand, whole RPG or being in the game. Oh, what if your friends were assholes? It immediately tells you that something different is going on. So with a comedy, subversion is a very good thing. But with action, you sometimes want to play it straight. In the land of the dwarves, one halfling shall stand tall. Something that that rolls off the tongue, but gives an idea of your story. And that might be a little generic there, but even so, that would at least tell you that you're probably dealing with epic fantasy. So those are my thoughts on taglines. Are short, no more than really 2 sentences. They should be descriptive, or at least evoke the heart of your story. If your story is is a dramatic love story, and you have this this light and airy thing of hey, 2 star-crossed lovers will will have wacky adventures, which would be an awful tagline, by the way. Right there, it's going to be okay, wait, this is a horrible tragedy, and this is... You want to evoke what you're doing. You want to set the atmosphere with your tagline. That's kind of what you want to do. And again, keep it short and keep it memorable, and say it multiple times yourself. If it doesn't roll off your tongue, if you kind of get tongue-tied, in space, no one can hear you scream a lot because there's a vacuum and there's no air. Right there, you've kind of failed. So... And sometimes less is more. So that said, those are my thoughts on developing a tagline. And again, stay away from horribly generic, because if I can attach your tagline to any book in your genre, it's not a good tagline. That said, my thoughts on that. I wanted to point out that yes, I do have a service out there that I've launched recently on my website. If you go to rickgualtieri.com, I can't even say my own name. Up in the menu bar, there is a tab called Services, and under that is a tagline service. So what I'm offering is, if you can't come up with something for a reasonable fee of $25, and if you're listening to this years in the future and I've raised the prices, I apologize for that. But for a reasonable fee, I'll ask you some information about your book. Obviously, the more you give me, the better, and I will take a stab at it. And the reason for this is, I grew up in the '80s. Yes, I'm that old, and I grew up, I mean, the 80s were the perfect time for movie taglines. Everything was a one-liner in the 80s. And as a result, my brain kind of thinks in that regards. And I know I've helped plenty of other authors with their taglines, and I'm like, well, hey, I've helped a ton of people. Maybe I can maybe I can put this out there, help other authors, and hey, if it pays for McDonald's for the kids, on the weekend, hey, that's great. So that's what I'm offering, and for that, after a couple days, I'll get back to you with either 2 or 3 taglines, mostly a tagline and variations. And if I can't come up with anything, then I will refund you and send you on your way. Because the reality is, I think I'm pretty good at this, but I'm not going to say I can't say that I can come up with something for everything. Because the truth of the matter is, some stories are really hard to whittle down to a couple lines, and the other harsh truth is, well, some stories are not all that original. I mean, there's a lot of clones out there, and if you're if there's a 50 Shades of Grey out there and you're writing nothing but 50 Shades clones that really are essentially the same story, just kind of like retold. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. You're kind of writing to trend, but at the same time, it might be a little harder to come up with something that's unique because your story might not be as unique as that. So I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm just saying that it could. So that is that is both my pitch and my thoughts on taglines. I'll put the link to the service in the comments. If you like it, hey, that's great. If you don't, not a big deal. But even if you don't, take my advice and rethink those taglines and make sure that they are you. Once again, even if they're not 100% unique to your story, they're at least unique to your genre, because you want to evoke something in somebody, not just give them the most generic of generic lines. Love happens. Yeah, okay. There's a million other romance books where love happens. You can do better. You're a writer. I believe in you. Anyway, my name is Rick Gualtieri. This is Tales of Midlist Author, and I do hope to talk to you again soon. I do have a couple other topics that I am, making a point of. Again, I'm still knee deep in writing a bunch of books. I have 5 works in progress right now, which is actually pushing it for me. But as I said, busy. But as I get a chance, I will record more of these, and I hope to talk to you again really soon.